If you haven't noticed, Degrassi has been running for a very long time, almost continuously since the late 80s. Took like about a 10-year break in between 1991 and 2001 or 2000, something like that. And throughout the many years, they've been able to explore events through different perspectives. Oftentimes it's big but common events like pregnancy, death, sickness, and with their big cast of characters, they've been able to redo these different plot points and get different perspectives in them. So you'd have a character who get pregnant and maybe they don't believe in abortion, so they decide to have the kid. And then next time someone will get pregnant and maybe they don't want the kid, but they don't want to have an abortion, so they'll give them up for adoption, that sort of thing. Still, there are some storylines that I kind of wish were done a little bit differently, or ideas that have not yet been explored in Degrassi. So this is gonna be my first of probably a few as I come up with more Degrassi wish lists. The biggest one to me, mainly because it hits home, is I want there to be a character who is poor, and it doesn't have to always be the main thing with them, but just have it consistent to where maybe they're hanging around with people who can afford to go out and do things, but this person can't, so either they're going to have to borrow money from someone else or have to work for it, something like that. We did get this with Zig a little bit when he was first introduced, but it was kind of dropped when everyone got back from Paris and they decided to use Zig to focus on a gang storyline. For the most part in Degrassi, money isn't totally an issue. I mean, there are instances where parents will say, no, we can't afford that, like when Shay wanted to get steroids to help improve her physical performance. But that's different from what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is sort of like where Zig wanted to take Tori out to little mistakes, but literally could not afford to. That's what I'm talking about. Just small things like going out rollerblading or going to a movie. You're able to do that sometimes when you happen to have money, but not consistently. Part of the reason why I'd like to see it is because it's something that I've dealt with myself. Growing up, we did not have very much money at all, barely any to spare, and that would create a lot of situations where my friends wanted to go to the movies or they wanted to go out and do something fun and I couldn't join because I didn't have the money to do it, or I'd have to borrow money from them and pay them back whenever there was spare cash around. For various reasons, I couldn't work at the time, and even when I was working after high school, I still did not have very much money to spare. It's a perspective that we don't get to see on TV a lot because no one wants to be reminded how poor people are. Even if you have enough money to get by, that doesn't necessarily mean you have enough money to enjoy yourself, or you have enough money to where you can pursue hobbies or just go into the movies, as I said. For the most part, money isn't really an issue with a lot of Degrassi characters. And by no means is Degrassi like a private school or a well-off school. I mean, you can tell from the look of it, but they're still a community school. That means that they have people from all the different financial classes who happen to live within the school district. So maybe they can have a character who essentially has to be a stay-at-home parent to their younger siblings because they're either single parent or both their parents are out working all the time, so someone has to be there to take care of the kids. And even with whatever revenue the parent or parents bring in, it's not exactly enough for them to go out and do fun things that their friends might want them to do. Something else I desperately want to see is a relationship that ends without a bunch of drama or yelling or anything like that. Contrary to what you might see in the show, there are relationships that end with, yeah, we're not exactly working out, and it's a consensus between the two parties, and they both decide to split off. Maybe they're not friends afterwards, but they're not at each other's throats, or there's not a bunch of open strife like with Frankie pining over Jonah. Yeah, of course it still hurts to break up with someone that you're really close to, but some couples are introspective enough to notice when they're just not working out in the way that they'd want to in order to continue. Maybe their goals or ideals for life just don't match, and even though they can respect each other as people, they know that they're not really good partners for a romantic relationship. There just always seems to have to be some sort of drama whenever a couple breaks up. There's always some sort of drama whenever a couple breaks up. There's some sort of misunderstanding, someone's cheating on someone else, someone's not interested in that person anymore, but they won't tell them until it comes to a big yelling fight. There's some sort of miscommunication. Scratch that, it's mainly some sort of miscommunication. That seems to be the #1 issue with all of Degrassi. People don't know how to communicate, which will probably be a video of its own. Just such a long-running thing throughout all of Degrassi. But with all the drama in Degrassi, there's not a lot of representation for people who can break up in a civilized manner and at least be cordial after the breakup. It'd just be something nice to see a couple end without a bunch of tears or dividing into 2 different opposing camps. And the last thing that I can think of right now that I'd also like to see in Degrassi is a re-exploration of the idea of a polyamorous relationship. I really did not like how they portrayed a polyamorous relationship with Imogen and Jack. Really, what it seemed to say was Jack only wanted a polyamorous relationship because she didn't feel like she could trust another person to be intimate with, and so she wanted to just spread her love out to the point where she didn't have to rely on a single person. That's not how a polyamorous relationship works at all. They never defined that. They never said that what she wanted wasn't actually a polyamorous relationship. All they said was that she was scared and she was afraid of pursuing a monogamous relationship with Imogen. Now, of course, polyamorous relationships are hard. You have to be able to treat everyone in it equally and make sure they're all loved equally, but they're not impossible. And there have been successful polyamorous relationships. But they didn't very much explore it because they're more focused on how Esme was using her 2 closest friends to sort of keep them in her bubble, make sure that they don't stray away. She was introducing Frankie into hers and Zig's romantic relationship to make sure that Zig doesn't leave her for Frankie. It was more a manipulation than actually exploring what a polyamorous trio or group would be like. I certainly wouldn't want it to become a main thing, like to where everyone's doing it, because that's not the case. A lot of people still prefer one person with one person, but I think we should have at least a season with a functioning polyamorous relationship. Of course, it can go like almost every Degrassi relationship where they get together at the midpoint or end of one season, spend a season all together going through other unrelated drama, and then either break up at the end of that season or break up at the midpoint of the next season. Oh, and one thing that I do want, and I know a lot of other people want, so I won't go into huge detail here. Actually, I think I already talked about a little bit in my previous video, but please, we need more episodes per season. Or maybe not even more episodes, but make the episodes themselves longer. We just need more time to hang out with these characters, be able to learn about the people that we're following, and stop making half the class background characters for a season until they get their time to shine, hopefully next season. There's just been so much missed potential with the last 4 seasons that I really want to see improved on in the next seasons. I mean, the show has been safely renewed with Netflix for at least 2 seasons from last I heard. So can we get a few more episodes per season? At least 2 or 3? Now, of course, I don't expect this to ever reach like the show writers or show producers, but it's nice to think about things that you'd like to see in Degrassi. As I said, it's a long-running show, and because of that, they get to explore a lot of different events and ideas in many different ways. These are just some of the things that I'd like to see further delved into with Degrassi. They don't even need to be right away. I mean, the polyamorous thing could probably be put off for a few seasons, but they'd be nice to see at some point. As always, thank you so much for listening and watching. Until next time.